Hello. Hi.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, Amanda. Hello, Diane.
Hi.
Can you see me all right, girls?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello to see your beautiful faces. I'm just going to let...
exercise actually, so I'm still in my exercise gear. So
yeah, well, I don't want to talk about that because I haven't done a fat lot of exercise today, and you've probably run 100 miles. I'm just going to let Claire in. We might have one or two others joining us as well. It's fabulous to see. Has everybody got a cuppa?
Yeah.
Hello, Claire. I know you can't hear me just yet. We'll get started in a second once she's got her audio on.
Hello.
Here she is. Hello, Claire.
Hi, Debs. How you doing?
Deb's here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I do have a cuppa. There we go.
That's the most important thing. It's Friday evening. It's 8 o'clock. It's been a long week. Okay. We're all here. I think we might get one or two coming in, but I said 8. So thank you for being punctual. I appreciate that.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was on the video. There's me. Hello.
Hello, Claire. What I'd like to do, in a moment, we'll mute, but I just wanted to welcome you and really extend my appreciation for you taking some time out, because actually investing time in ourselves is a really important thing to do. I'm sure we all agree that, but it's quite hard by the end of the week to find that extra. So I'm really, really glad that you did, because this is for you if you would like to make change and you'd like perhaps some new ideas or some different direction as to how to do it. If you're in a change, and many of us feel that that's really very prevalent on the planet as well as personally at the moment, but maybe it's not flowing for you. Maybe there's too many obstacles or ifs and buts and, thought forms coming up that keep you going around the loop a little bit. Or perhaps you've tried to change in the past and you've not had the best outcome and you're like, I don't know if this is really for me. So you want to change, but maybe you feel or worry that it's going to upset somebody else or derail your life in some way. So you can't see all the steps. And what I'd like to do this evening is really, well, first of all, congratulate you for being here, because making a commitment to change is a bit of a magic wand. And I'm going to share with you things across 4 levels. So very often we talk about change from a personal development perspective as, if you like, a very digital process. You do this, you do that, you tick this box. And yes, you do need a process. We're going to map out a process for you. But we're not digital beings. We are very complex beings. And you could say that what a lot of change processes miss out on is the fact that there are aspects to us that are not the same for everybody. And yet at one level, at the quantum level, there's something going on that we need to understand and harness. Now, just to give you a quick background, I'm not going to do masses of this, but I started working in personal and business development over 30 years ago. And I was really excited, I did NLP and all the psychometrics, and I have taught thousands of people different systems of change. And what I realized was I could pour my heart into delivering really good material and people would have a little go, But in the moment, it was really hard for them to step into the thing they knew cognitively was the right thing to do, right? I don't know if you've ever found that to be true when you've watched other people trying to change. But the fact of the matter is, when we only work with the mind, we're missing a big chunk of who we are and what we are. It's not just about the mind, it's about the subconscious. So I want to talk to you about what changed for me and what I'm going to present to you about that. And simply what happened was, about 15 years ago, I began, maybe more, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't even know how old my car is anymore. It's just like I've gone past a certain age where you kind of tick in the boxes anymore. But and I'm sure I need a new one. But I got very interested in energy work. It happened So I'm talking about a subtle energy that you can't see. Some people might call it healing, and I think that comes with a bit of baggage. Healing, I want to fix myself. I've got something wrong and I want it to be well. Well, we do, don't we? But healing is a bit more than that. And I found myself saying to a friend one weekend, she said, "Oh, I've got a Reiki master coming to my house next weekend." Reiki could have been Japanese food, honestly. And I just found myself going, "That's amazing, I'm coming." My mouth had opened, and this agreement had come out before I even knew what I was stepping into. And as I began to work with let's call it the subtle natural energies, I realized this was a very familiar place for me. And I was studying practical metaphysics at the time, and also still consulting with, big organizations. And it was a question of how could I bring these together, because I saw that they needed each other. If you have all the energy work, that's amazing, we need it. But if we still don't have the operating system in our mind, our knowledge, to put that energy into work, we get frustrated spiritually. And some of you might have, I'm doing all this spiritual work and my life isn't changing. And then perhaps there's another side of it, like a lot of the people that I used to see, who would understand conceptually and could repeat to me, the process of being assertive, for example, or a problem-solving situation. But in the moment, they wouldn't take the step. And so a few years ago, I saw how to blend these together. So the context that I'm giving you tonight is that change happens on 4 levels. And it's not necessarily that we're always stepping from one to the other, i.e. physical, emotional, spiritual, and psychological. Change is a spiral. So we might find ourselves in a physical place one day, needing to apply it, and then we might get an emotional or a psychological response to that we then have to go spiritually, or, it's like it flows like energy. So I'm going to show you some slides. I'm going to put you all on mute for a moment. What's going to happen is we'll go through the slides. I hope you've got your workbooks handy, because the slides follow the process that I laid out. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have questions as we go through, if you can see the chat button in the bottom bar, after it, you should see something that says chat. Just pop the question in and I'll gather them all up in about 40 minutes when we get, might not even be that long. So we've got plenty of time for me to give you input into your plan, and we will get to starting your map. Okay, so Barty, I'm just going to mute you. So you can all mutter under your breath now, sip your tea, sigh, I can't hear you. Okay. What's going to happen next is I'm going to perform a bit of screen sharing. And with any luck, in a little moment, you should be able to see, let's see, some screens, some nice little slides. We'll get them looking gorgeous in a second. There you go. So here we are, the Midlife Game Changer Masterclass. So what I want to do is just unravel these processes and the practices that go with them, so that we can make change and we can sustain it. That's really important. As I promised earlier, I'm going to show you how to map out a change so that you're not dodging from thing to thing. You've got somewhere to go with it. We're going to start that in the class. We need to talk about what the major pitfalls, challenges, and setbacks are likely to be, and they'll differ for all of us, and what to do when they show up. That's pretty important, right? We need to understand something about our neurochemistry, because without that understanding, we can feel that we're not really there's something wrong with us, right? And there isn't. And we also need to bust the myth of willpower. So that's more on the biochemical and psychological level. And then we're coming into what I would call the spiritual level. So I don't mean a level here about a belief or a religion. What I'm talking about is invisible or subtle energy. let's call it your energy field, and why that can hold you back, and how you can drain energy to other things through this subtle field that can make you feel really heavy and that progress is very difficult. And lastly, I want to talk about how the energy work that I use really lifts and shifts vibration. So change is much easier to sustain. And that's what we need. We need this energy running through us. So, you know, we're like in a nice little canoe rather than hanging on to a raft. So in the way of these things, I just want a quick bit of workbook check-in. You've all got one in front of you, a couple of pens. Ditch your distractions. I know it's tempting, but honestly, girls, it's so soothing not to have a distraction. So if you've got anything switched on that might interrupt you, I've turned my phone off. Just value yourself and the others who've also given up an hour of their time. You know, that once we're in a cohesive group like this, we are actually supporting each other energetically. Either write down your questions or pop them into the chat, and please ask them. Makes me feel better. And there's bound to be questions, and no question is stupid, you know, no question is out. Whatever comes to your mind is the question you need. Okay, you're ready. So have a little look at the top of your workbook. So sometimes we bowl into change without really, if you like, thinking it through. And you've probably heard this before, but you've got to have a big why, a big reason. Okay? So if it's not big enough, if it's not going to touch you emotionally, it's going to be really hard for you to float the boat and get out there into this river of change, which does need some negotiation. So when you look at your big why, what do you want to change? You can jot it down if you want to. What do you want to change? And is there a why behind that you can really feel into? And some prompts around that could be, I want to change, let's say, my relationship with a friend. So that is really a big why in another outfit, so that I can feel, I can do something different, I can feel differently, or I can have something. It could be a physical something, or it could be an outcome. It could be peace, it could be an intangible. I could have more peace, I could have more time for myself. So I'm just going to give you a moment to think that through. We're starting to signal to ourselves why this matters, because we're going to need to hold on to this at different times during our process, which could be a week or a month or a year, you know. But we want to know that this matters to us. And because is a great word, okay? I want to do this because. What difference is this going to make to your life? And at this point, I only want you to think about your life, not to the exclusion of others. We'll come back and look at the impact on other people later in the process. But because I care, because I'm precious, because I owe it to myself. Because without this, I won't feel fulfilled. Because it's a deep desire and dream of mine. You know, I'm encouraging you to dig deep, because we have to tap the emotional body. It's where a lot of energy is tied up and sometimes restricted. Now, what I'm going to do at the end of the evening, I'm going to put this recording up for a week on my website. So if you need to come back to it, you can. So don't feel that if you haven't got it all down now, you've lost it, because that's not where we're going with that. So that's your big why. Now that's, if you like, on the plus side. And sometimes we have to get on the weighty side of not changing. We really have to pause and hold up the mirror of our soul and our life and say, what's the cost of not changing? Okay, this is more of the stick than the carrot, but we need both, guys, because when we're in denial, we also get into paralysis and procrastination. Okay. Now, the cost isn't necessarily money, but it could be. It could be money we're not making because we're not charging enough, or we're not doing the business that we really want to. It could be the cost of time. We're wasting time doing something we don't really want to do, or being somebody we don't want to be. There's often a huge cost of health. It could be just low energy. It could be niggling pain. It could be ongoing health problems. And we know that if we don't take care of that, it's not going to get better on its own, right? And maybe you're at the level where it's just like the cost of not doing this is that my soul, this nebulous feeling that kind of defines us really, beyond personality, my soul isn't going to get to express in this lifetime. Now, the other side of this coin is to think. Sometimes we're like, should I be this selfish? But think about it. Who else won't get your radiance? If you can help other people, if that's where you want to go, and that could be anything, it could be family, it could be baking a beautiful cake or creating a work of art. You know, it's not about being Mother Teresa, God bless her. But we are here to, amongst other things, enjoy being ourselves and radiate that help, that support, that uniqueness that's you to other people. When other people see you being different and changed, they might get brave and take a step as well. So there's a cost to us of not changing. And there's a cost to our, let's say, our community. Who are you here to serve? You don't have to know that exactly, but do know that you are connected in a greater way. And that when you step out and you take these brave steps to be and express yourself in a different way, somebody else, at least one other person, is going to look at you and go, I want some of that. I don't want to waste my time here not being fully myself. So have a little think about that, the cost of not changing. And this is a little bit dull, but I wanted to just alert us, because we are the midlife game changers, right? There are some things that are truly irreplaceable, and the love of family and friends is definitely one, but there is another, and it's time. Now, when I first saw this, I really went back on my heels. So if you look at the top of these little dots, you can see the week of the year, 1 to 52. It goes up to 50 and 52. So those are the weeks of the year. And the down axis is our age, 0 to 5 to 10 to 15. And the little names and numbers in there show the point at which some people stopped being alive. They fell off the planet, they passed on, their life came to an end. And you can see it didn't matter how famous or wealthy they were, that's how far they got. Now, this is a little bit sobering, and I don't mean to be morbid in any way, but if you look at the number of zeros on there and kind of roughly plot where you are now, if we are, to get beyond 80, which I hope we all do, we still got a lot of time to do a lot of stuff, but it's not finite. You can replace money, you can generally get your health back if you start soon enough, but you'll never buy back time. So let's get practical. Let's get practical, girls. You've got to decide at this point how you'll know you've changed. Now, very often in classic change management, they tell you to make a SMART objective, don't they? specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Okay, and that's all well and good if you're, I don't know, wanting to make sales, for example. It's quantitative. You can tell how many of a thing has been done. Okay, you can quantify it. But very often in personal development, it isn't something that we can easily measure. It's more qualitative. We feel different, or something different happens around us that you can't actually put a number or a time on. So I know, Amanda, for example, and she won't mind me saying, she might put a quantitative goal together that she wants to run 30 miles in so many hours, right? And that's a quantitative, and we can do that, they're useful. But qualitatively, she might also say, and I want to feel really fit and well afterwards, and I want to feel healthy, and I want all of those things as well, right? So we need to have them both, because as I said at the beginning, we're not just digital, i.e. creatures that are tick box that we count. A qualitative change could be, I just feel more relaxed. You don't even need a quantitative change, to be honest. I feel better about myself. When I'm with my family, I feel more in control. I feel more peace. Right? You've got to have some way of saying, I'll know when I've changed, because then your brain will go, oh, look, it's happening. And guess what? You'll do more of what you did before in the change process to have that feeling, right? That's how we succeed. We keep trying to create situations where we see and feel our success in a way that's meaningful to us. So I'm not saying do a SMART or any other measurement. Choose the measurements that work for you. One of the reasons we often feel failures is a number of reasons. One, we start with too big of a project. We make it too huge and we don't break it down. So I always say start with something quite small and make sure you know when you're successful. And then repeat the process, because the more examples of being successful in your life you have, the more excited and confident you'll become, and the more you will step a little bit bigger, right? The other reason we often think we don't succeed is because our expectations are very high at the beginning, and then we measure our progress as though we should have got it all sorted. I want to talk about that a little bit in a moment. And one of the reasons is because we have what I call restraining and restrictive forces that we don't even know are operating on us. So we'll go into change thinking, yeah, I'm going to feel great in a week, or da-di-da-di-da. And then you don't, and you think, what's wrong with me? How come that hasn't worked? Well, here's a few ideas. One of them is to look back and see what stopped you in the past. What has stopped you in the past? It could be other people's attitudes. It could be your own thought forms. It could be you've not allocated the time or the money, or found the right mentor or the right program. You know, things that stop us are not insurmountable. It's really important that we all believe that. They're just obstacles. Then have a look at the green arrow on the right, the pale green. What do you see as the biggest obstacles right now? It's important, again, that we don't get into too much the fluffy unicorn land. We're all cantering around going, oh, there are obstacles. I'm not saying that they're real, for everybody they're the same. This is why I want you to have your own unique process. But for you, what do you see as the biggest obstacle right now? Just look at it. Don't get into a dialogue with it. Do I really want to? What will my husband say? What if this doesn't work? Thought forms, all of these things are restraining and restrictive forces. My family, or at least we feel them and we've built them into our scheme of life as a restraining or restrictive force, because we've all lived within pre-programmed limitations, whether we've realized it or not. And the third way to look at this is, can you face these forces and deal with them? Or could you, with the right support, with other tools? Can you have a really good look at them? Could you face them? Could you deal with them? So that just sort of sobers us up a little bit. It's like, okay, I want to change. I've had a little think about what I want to change and why it's important. Now I'm assessing this project, if you like, and I can see already. So you're already meta to the problems, if you like. You're already detaching from them and seeing them, if you like, as little roadblocks, which is great. Now, here's something I wanted to share with you. It's the Kelly and Connor change response curve. Bart is like, I know this. Kelly and Connor, so my background was, apart from the energy work, essentially in human development. So that's my master's and my postgraduate. It's all around that. They call it social science. Kelly and Connor, pair of social scientists who looked at what happens when people go into change. They call it the change response curve. And if you look at the top left-hand part of the axis, this is where we all start out: happy, uninformed, and optimistic. We don't know what we don't know, but we feel really good about what's ahead. As we go into the process and start applying the principles and the practices, we suddenly start to realize that there are things I don't know that I need to know. And we feel a bit more pessimistic about it. So I'm hoping that's kind of where we are now. We're heading towards that line of informed pessimism. Perhaps there's more to this than I thought. And as we work through change, particularly when we're unsupported, we can sink a little bit. Our energy, if you like, dips as we start to inevitably come against those roadblocks. Now, why do I say inevitably there are roadblocks? Because frankly, if they're things that have been restraining and restrictive forces, until we get past them and become the person who has overcome them, they have to be there. If they weren't there, we'd already be the change, wouldn't we? We'd already be that person. So we can't magic them away. They are, if you like, the weights that we have to lift to grow and be stronger. That's exactly what they are. If you like, our life pattern has put them there to allow us to get beyond them. And that's where, when we get to sometimes the difficult day or the doubting day, we have to make a determined effort and stick with our commitment. And that's where a lot of people give up. I call it the day 3 syndrome. It could be week 3, it could be any, but we do often go through a period where we go, oh, for heaven's sake, this isn't going to work for me. And that giving up is very often why people go through the new shiny object syndrome. They go, well, that didn't work for me. I'm going to go back and find a new system. And guess what? You are inevitably going to go through that curve again. Oh, this is great. Oh, look at this. Look at what they've done. Look at that. This guru is better than that guru, whatever. And suddenly you find you're in the bottom of the curve again. New shiny object syndrome is very tempting, but actually what we really need to develop is this determination to our big why. Giving up is not an option, unless something really bad is kicking off with the project itself or the process or your teacher or something. This is where your rubber really has to hit the road. And as you work through the blocks, you suddenly realize there's hope. I'm realistic about what I have to do, and I can do it. And that's when we come back into the informed optimism stage. I know what I need to do, and I'm optimistic I can do it. Now, this happens sometimes during your day. If you think about your day, you can sometimes see this happening. Oh my God, I didn't know this was going to happen. Oh, I'm going to keep going. It's like, me starting this project to do this masterclass 3 weeks ago, and suddenly I get to Friday and yesterday, and my Microsoft 365 subscription was up, and I can't even tell you the ridiculousness of trying to resubscribe. And then I got this horrible new word, which is why the workbook isn't anything like I wanted it to be, but it's like, just get it out, because I couldn't find any of the editing tools that I really wanted. I'm like, just keep going, determined. If I'd given up yesterday or a week ago with the workbook, we wouldn't be here now. And I'd be sorry about that, because I love doing what I do. So we've had a look at some practical things, right? And I promised you a little bit of neurochemistry. Now, I'm not a neurochemist. I'm a social scientist, but I have studied. So there's the tantric yoga aspect of me, which comes into it. But I've studied and visited with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who some of you may have come across. He's written many wonderful books. The biology, sorry, that's somebody else. You Are the Placebo and Changing the Habit of Being Yourself are two of his most famous books. And Dr. Joe is this amazing mixture of teacher who has actually studied the mysteries and scientist. So when you study with Dr. Joe, he's very much into, let's measure what's happening in your brain so we can see it and prove it works and replicate it. And here's some things I've learned from Dr. Joe. We think we know what we believe, right? But a belief is not as conscious as you think it is. And I'll explain why that is. So there's these restraining forces that we've tried to identify, but the ones that actually hold us back, of course, are the ones we just can't see. They're the water that we swim in. We don't even know that we don't know it. And this is why having positive thoughts, which is no bad thing, but trying to have positive thoughts and then wondering why you don't change can be so flipping frustrating, because the part of your brain that's having the positive thoughts does not influence the subconscious mind, right? There's like a gate, and there's different things that happen, but we're in a different brainwave state when we're thinking positive thoughts. We're in beta wave, and actually we have to slip past beta wave to influence the subconscious mind. And there's a few ways of doing that. Thinking is not one of them. Now, thoughts, when we have these thoughts, they do create a belief. And when you think them over and over and over again, you'll experience a feeling, right? So if I keep thinking, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, I get a kind of sinking inward feeling that makes me kind of lose my energy. I get a certain biochemical response, right? I have a feeling about that. And that response fires and wires that state. It's like my brain takes a snapshot and adds the chemical response to it and stores that as an automatic unconscious program. Okay. Now, 95% of our automatic unconscious programs were stored in our body, in our life, by the time we were 35. Right? We've mapped all the very important things, particularly the scary things or things we're supposed to do. Our brain has naturally stored those because it wants to protect us. And they are in an unconscious part of us. They're in our physical cells, not in the brain. So when we have the same thoughts, either consciously or unconsciously, your body continues to respond in the same way it did when the event originally occurred. So let's say that you were 4 or 5 and you put your hand out to take a sweet or something, or take something off the table before your mother had said, you can eat. And somebody screamed at you, don't do that. You're like, you have an instant response. It hits your biochemistry. You get the chemicals of fear coming in. From a tantric hathic perspective, I can see how it hits the chakra system. Everything creates a response, and it stores it in your body to protect you. So you can even inherit these patterns, but that's a whole other topic. So what happens is our body, if you like, is unconsciously living in the past very often. We think we're going to change and then we just pull back. Now, that's one big reason change is hard. We try to do it consciously only, but mind is not enough. And when you can see and understand the amount of patterns we have stored in our body, and why we might suddenly go quiet in a moment when we know we should say something different, but perhaps the throat feels stuck, or we start thinking, oh, I hadn't better do that. You realize that what's actually happening is your body's trying to keep you safe. It's called stasis. Your body actually likes to be in stasis. Oh, sorry, guys. So remember, when you have an experience, the end result of that experience is a feeling, right? If you have an experience that's happy and positive, you have a happy and positive feeling in your body. When you've had an experience that's shut you down, and you may not even remember because you might have been tiny, might have been something that happened in the playground or at home, the feeling you get is still a feeling with a biochemical mirror to it. So a feeling produces this biochemical response. And when you feel that feeling, again, you might not even know you're feeling it because it's so familiar, a thought will happen. So your body is actually in this loop. It likes stasis. So it tries to keep you in the same feeling. And when you step out to do something different, it tends to try to pull you back a little bit because it's like, oh, that's not safe. We're stepping into the unknown. And that's what change is. It's doing things differently. And our habits are simply the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs that we repeatedly do. We inhabit that world. Your world might feel different to my world. We could be sitting in the same room, sharing the same, cake and coffee, but the way you're feeling biochemically, even if you're kind of physically present, could be very different. I might be feeling peaceful, relaxed, able to talk and express myself. And the only reason that you might not feel the same is because you're having a different response in your body to what you're thinking. So part of the process of change is just being aware of this, because we have to become like the force that understands what we're thinking and feeling and can interfere with that, intervene with that. Otherwise, we stay in a loop. That's what being a human is. It's this ability to rise above our thoughts and feelings and change how our energy flows. Now, I just wanted to talk about our energy field a bit, because when we have a thought, because it makes a frequency, it actually is a vibration in the brain, beta wave, it has a little bit of an influence straight away in your energy field. Your energy field is this invisible, multi-layered matrix or network of electromagnetic forces. The picture that you're seeing there is actually a fairly well-known one. It's the Taurus field. And all living objects have a field like that. The matrix is global. So if you look at planet Earth, she looks like that from one level. Every one of us has a field. It sustains us. Our cells are little batteries. They're electromagnetic. They move with potassium and sodium. They're pumping all the time. So, as I said, a thought has a frequency, and frequency is a wave. It's both a sound wave and a color wave. So if you like quantum, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. It's a wavicle. It's a particle and a wave. It's both, and it's all. So this is one of the really secret sources of how we have to impact change. We have to understand that our energy field is actually the greater part of us. Now, physicists will tell you that 99.9% of us is not physically manifest. Your body and all the material in your body, including your brain, is the densest, slowest aspect of our energy field. In fact, it's so slow that it looks dense. I look dense, right? We feel solid. We're not actually solid, but we're solid enough, right? So this energy field outside of us is also influenced by our thoughts, naturally, because they are a frequency. They go out as a wave. As we think a thought, it's an electrical current. So I want to show you, as I promised at the beginning, how your energy field itself can be a restricting force without you even knowing it. So where does energy come from? Let's just consider that. It's coming from lots of sources, not just food. It comes from food, but it also comes, if you like, in our universe, our galaxy, from the center point of creation, where, let's call it, the Big Bang happened. Right? This massive explosion or interruption in some field of unbelievable amounts of energy, which created our solar and stellar system. And every stellar object or solar object, we have the sun, has its own energy field, which is also beautifully aligned on a matrix system. And energy, if you like to think about it, it's like energy runs through cables. It's the same thing. It's all moving in certain directions. And in terms of, let's get very local, our planet Earth, it comes into what's called the global grid matrix, that field that you saw, and it settles, slows down, and it settles into the crystals in the earth, the metals in the earth. It helps to create, through one level, which is called prana, it sustains the plants. We have sound waves. Some of them are way beyond the normal level of human hearing, and light waves. Food is created by it. Prana, which is an aspect of it, which creates our etheric body. Water and air all carry energy, and so do we. So we're like a little cosmos. We're exactly like a little cosmos. Now, when our energy field has repeatedly had the same patterns imprinted into it through our thoughts, actions, and behaviors, it stands to reason it looks the same as it did last year, right? If you were to peek at your energy field, it wouldn't look a lot different if you haven't had any fundamental change to it. Because if we stay in our old patterns, the energy that does want to channel through, and there is new energy always coming to the planet, actually can't reach our cells because there's what we could call a sticky density in the energy field that's nearest to our body. We call it webbing. Different people call it different things. In transference healing, we tend to see it like webs or tentacles. It's just like cobwebs in your house, really. It's energy that's getting dense and sticky, right? It's just getting slower and slower. And that means that where you want to have new energy coming in, it's very hard to reprogram the old patterns, because you can't, as Einstein says, you can't solve a problem at the level that it was created. In other words, pushing matter against matter is just really, really hard work. And as we've seen, very difficult to do. So we have this clogged up energy field, most of us, and we might have inherited some of that through our DNA. That's a whole different topic, but we do. And we may have it clogged up because we're unconsciously leaking energy to others. Now, we don't mean to do this. It just happens because we might be surrogating, like perhaps giving too much energy to other people. We might be giving energy to beliefs that actually drain us, make us feel heavy. And we may have, in fact, most of us will have, energetic ties that we can't see. And these ties can come through strong emotional bonds with other people. This is not me saying we shouldn't have love and emotional bonds. We just don't want them in certain parts of our energy field. We need them coming from the heart energy, actually, which is way more powerful in terms of its ability to transmit and receive than our own personal energy field in the lower half. So energetic ties come through sexual contact. That's a very, look, one sperm and one egg makes trillions of cells. If there's sexual contact, there's actually energy running through that contact, and we don't need it to be doing that. We want the energy to come from the heart. Another reason that we don't shift is because we're not running higher frequencies regularly into this energy system, right? We need to actually be constantly clearing our lower energy. As much as you clean your house or you have a detox, you know, Dr. Joe says, I say, you can drink as many green smoothies as you want. You'll still create copies of the DNA and the proteins that you're still running. You've got to get fresh energy into the system. If we don't, we can get sick and tired because our cells cannot regenerate from the energy that we need because of this fog, if you like. And the last reason is we often try to solve a problem from the wrong starting place. So we misidentify our problem and then we try and tackle it from that place. And actually, it didn't start from there, because most problems, if you like, start in the invisible field. That's where the energy is flowing from. So if we don't fix that, we're going to be like a hamster running on a wheel. If you've ever spoken to people who've been in weight loss programs or people who've had loads of money and lost it, that they try to do the same thing, but the problem still recurs. Why is that? Because actually their problem wasn't what they thought their problem was. It wasn't lack of money or too much weight. It was a misunderstanding about their belief system or how to manage their life in a way from an emotional level. But I don't want to digress too much into that, but that's often a problem. So I just want a quick word on willpower. You may have heard of, I think it's Walter Mischel, he's one social scientist, psychologist, and another one, Roy Baumeister, did some very interesting experiments, one called the marshmallow experiments, and Baumeister did one called the radishes and cookies. But I haven't got time tonight to tell you all about that. They're pretty juicy fun. But what they confirm is what we've all experienced. Willpower has its limits. Okay? You may have been told, oh, you just need willpower, or you're weak. Haven't you got the willpower to get past this? And we're all a bit puzzled going, well, I think I've got willpower, but maybe I just don't have enough. Willpower is a battle between the immediate desires of your animal self. I'm going to call that the lower three energy centers for the moment, with the long-term goals of your future self. So your future self is the person who at the beginning tapped into her big why. She exists, right? Your future self exists, otherwise you wouldn't have even been able to write that statement. And willpower and the battle between your lower self and your future self or your higher self is a problem for most people when they don't understand that battle and they don't understand that actually they need a higher frequency energy to overcome the battle. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Oddly enough, people are born with varying levels of willpower. But whoever you are, however strong your willpower is, like any muscle in the body, it can get fatigued. Baumeister calls it ego depletion. Now, those of you know me know that I'm a psychic. I have a variety of psychic talents, for want of a better word. What I see is very similar to what Baumeister calls it. I see that the ego, which is a construct that we need the positive aspects, actually gets incredibly tangled energetically with one of our energy centers. Quickest way I can describe it. And we can deplete ourselves energetically by trying to work forward with just willpower, because we get into all kinds of dynamics with other people and situations. So I agree with Baumeister, both from an ego point of view and a psychotherapeutic point of view. Willpower isn't enough. And that's good news, right? There's not something wrong with you because you haven't been able to succeed, you haven't got enough willpower. So that's a bit sort of old school. There's something that somebody didn't tell you. And that's what I'm telling you. Willpower isn't enough. You need to tap into your emotions, and you need to have some system that helps you to increase your energy. And you need to be able to do your housekeeping on your subtle or invisible energy systems as well as your physical life, because you are a multi-layered, multifaceted being. Working with one aspect of that is just going to be really exhausting and probably not successful. So let me tell you a little bit about the energy system I use. So in 2008, when I was a Reiki master and I was still consulting for Shell and Hanson Quarry products and all kinds of really interesting people, and flying around Europe in my smart little suit and giving lectures and teaching people how to transform, at night I was doing Reiki, and my inner wisdom, let's call it that, people say they're guides, told me that I had to stop doing Reiki now. And I was like, oh, great. It's taken me 8 years to become a Reiki master. And now that I've got this really strong impulse, you have to give up your Reiki practice. And my ego said, well, that's good, because now you can go back and get a proper job and earn lots more money and give up this healing nonsense. I'm like, yeah, good. A week later, I'd signed up to something called transference healing. It's just the way it went. I'm like, this looks good. So in 2008, I began my transference healing journey. I'm now a teacher, an advanced practitioner, and I'm honored and humbled to say I've been to 2 mystery schools. So I've studied this and I practice it every day of my life. It's a 7th dimensional frequency. So it's coming from, if you like, crystalline, a higher level of energy than I could access otherwise. Okay? And it helps us to heal and to ascend. And ascension just means to keep reprogramming yourself so that you get an expanded consciousness and life. You live life from an easier perspective. It takes work. It's not like a magic wand, but it gives you the technology to do it. It's multidimensional. It works with, if you have a look at the top layer there, you can see spirals of DNA, you can see crystalline, and you can see a body with colors down the middle and radiating bars of energy out. So this is the energy field I was referring to, and it has many bodies. One of them is called the light body, which helps to bring light, photons, which are the carrier for energy, into our cells. And that's what alchemy is. It's bringing more light into your actual, real bodied cells. It uses elements, sound and color, as I mentioned, alchemy and light, to work with these deep levels of patterning that in your, what we call your etheric pattern. These often are what you've been born with, and they are like little codes that are into the deepest levels of your being. Right? And I've seen them, I've actually seen them with my eyes. So the human body is an enormous gift to us. It is a vehicle through which we make light crystalline or densify it, which is why we've got a physical body. But at this point in humanity, we've reached beyond how dense, we can't get any denser. We've got to start expanding and bringing in this new consciousness, which is where our soul wants us to go, because that's when we really kind of catch the wave of who we really are and experience it in life. So Alexis Cartwright is my teacher. She lives in Australia. She's the channel, so she brought it to birth. I first met her in 2000 actually, and was just recognized her authenticity. She's very calm, quiet, not showy. You're not going to find her on the stage somewhere. But she anchors this, and she's the founder of Transference Healing. And it's really important I tell you this, because this is what I do every day, as well as all the practical things that I picked up in those 30 plus years. So if you're feeling sick, unwell, or not 100%, all of this, it can help. It just really helps to shift. It's like flushing water through, when you get your central heating gunked up. Transference healing is like bringing this new energy, activating it, and helping you to see what's in the way. It shows up really clearly in your life what's sticking. And you can have face-to-face and absentee healings, with any transference healer. I'm not here to say that do that with me. There's a website and we're all around the world. There's not thousands of us, there's hundreds of us probably now, about 300 or 400. But it is a most amazing and magical modality. I think I'm wearing a transference thing. So these are the 4 levels I wanted you to understand: energy, psychology, emotional life, and practicality. So let's just ground all this. Okay, I want you to just come back to your worksheet, take a moment, because we've absorbed a lot, and just go back and look at your big why. And just double check within yourself. This is beginning your map now. Is this the right why for me? Do you want to start smaller? Do you want to start more specific? Do you want to go bigger? It's your map. You can change it. This isn't cast in stone, but does this set me on fire? Does my heart go boom? Yeah. When I go, yeah, that's my big why. I don't want to leave the planet till I've done this. That's where my big why is. And then what you got to do, ladies, is commit. Something you can do after the class, and it has to be 100%, because only 100% will get you through when it gets crappy. You could write a letter to yourself from your future self and share it with somebody. Why I decided to commit. Something I do is I set little signposts along the way and celebrate them. One way you can do that, there's a website called futureme.com where you can write letters to yourself from the future. It's really cool. You can actually write them from a month ahead. So if you wanted to do something in the next 30 days, for example, you can go to Future Me and write a letter to yourself saying, hey, gorgeous, remember that you committed to this, you amazing creature. Look at you now. You can put what you want. Nobody else has to see it. I love futureme.com. You can write a letter to all kinds of, you can send one to your family from, 5 years in the future, so people can get letters from you. Now, one of the things that we have to consider is who else is our change going to impact? This doesn't necessarily change what we're doing, but it's certainly a Buddhic principle as well. Who else do I need to talk to about this? Would somebody need to know? And who should I not tell? Just as important, you want supporters. Now look, if you know somebody's going to be a detractor, don't tell them. Okay? If I was to say to you, go to the hardware store and bring back some milk, you'd say, well, they don't sell milk at the hardware store. In the same way, if you know someone's going to be a drain or a detractor or negative, don't tell them. You already know that they're not going to be able to support you. And that's their stuff. You can't expect everybody to be able to support us. Sometimes it's just best to keep this to yourself and maybe share it with 1 or 2 important people. Now, sometimes in change, we need stuff or equipment. It could be something very small. It could be setting up an altar. It could be equipment, food. It could be equipment, running shoes. We often need resources. So think about that, because setting up your environment could be one of the last things I talk about to succeed is super important. This is really what I'm talking about now. Set the environment up to support you. Might be a cost involved. Face that now, because if you get there and you go, oh, I can't spend the money, you've already created a restriction. Very often we can buy or borrow or repurpose stuff. And very often we don't need stuff at all, really. Do you need to create a bit of time for this? If it's a new meditation practice, what else do you might have to give something up to create that time? Where do you find that time? Sometimes things need to be altered or thrown away. Could be an old way of doing something. It could be throwing away something that signifies a part of you that's no longer important to you. That can be a real symbolic act. Sometimes you just need to stop doing something. Now, for me, I have to stop myself watching Netflix in the week. I just do. It's my little sort of go-to at the end of the day thing. And I always sleep longer if I've watched Netflix. I have to stop my Netflix. And sometimes these things impact other people. And again, just consider, if this is environment creating, who is going to be impacted if I stop doing something. It could be stopping visiting somebody, or giving money to a certain charity, or, you make ripples. So let's get the ripples calmed down first. Face them. Couple more things with your change map. How do you want to measure progress? Never mind what somebody else does, it doesn't matter. Could it be by the way you feel, by the way somebody responds to you, by a decision you make? And how are you going to celebrate your milestones? Now, some of my clients have actually really enjoyed a wall chart with stars or ticks on every day they did something. They're very visual. Some people have built an altar and added things to it. Some people have promised themselves a gift, at the end of a week or 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. That's why I want it to be personal to you. There isn't a one size fits all. Measure your progress your way. Otherwise, going back to what we said, your expectations will be high and you'll look back and you'll think, I'm not making progress. But you will make progress. The pace you go at is the pace you go at, right? Progress is all you need in life. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. As long as you're heading into the direction you want, you are not standing still, and that will create change. Now, what do you need to avoid? It could be people, situations. For example, for me, a long time ago when I gave up smoking, what I had to avoid was having a glass of wine in the evening, because that was my trigger. Glass of wine, cigarette. Yeah? None of those in my life anymore. What can I put in place to help me through? So if you're going to take something out of your life, be conscious of that and put something in. So it could be that you just go out for a quick 10-minute walk at a time when you might be triggered to snack. Look, if you don't want to eat junk food, I'm afraid the hard truth is don't put it in the cupboard. Okay, that this is called situational self-control. It goes back to the Baumeister experiment. I'll just tell you really quickly. Was it Baumeister? Oh, it was Miss Shell with the marshmallows. They brought some 4-year-old children into a room with a video camera running, and they put a marshmallow in front of each of these children. And they said to them, okay, we're going out of the room for 2 minutes, and if you don't eat your marshmallow, you'll get 2 when we come back. Some of the children just went and ate the marshmallow, and some had this bit more self-control and didn't. Now, this experiment continues today. This is 30 years ago, and they measured those children's progress over SATs and high school and university. And they found those that could exert some situational self-control fared better. So make it easy for yourself. Don't put temptation in your way. It's my best, honestly, when I'm going through those times, I hate myself for a moment for not having left chocolate in the cupboard, but I know that in 2 minutes, if I go out for a walk, the moment will have gone. Or I make myself some flapjack. That's my other deal. If I can be asked, frankly, to make myself some flapjack, fair enough. So I have to control my environment to make sure that it's supportive for me. Who else will your change impact? We've talked about, but you've got to understand what that might mean to them. And they might be able to help you as well. So do you need to ask for support? And what would that look like? If you're going to ask for people for support, try to be as clear as you can be what you'd like from them. And if they can't give it to you, be gracious. The last thing I'd say is, do you need to be accountable? I'm asking that as a question, but the answer is yes. It makes an enormous difference if someone's holding you to account. I have an accountability buddy. We meet on Monday for 15 minutes and we talk about whether we've done what we said we were going to do or not. So can you find somebody to buddy up with you? I tell you, it'll make all the difference to your change process. So quick review, and then we'll have a look and see if there's any questions. So I promised you I'd show you how to map out your blueprint. So we've just started that in class, right? You've got lots of steps, lots of ideas, and I'm going to leave the video for you over the weekend so you can come back and look. The major pitfalls, challenges and setbacks. Well, we looked at restraining and restrictive forces. That's what that's about. And we looked at the Kelly and Connor change response curve. So you do know when you get to the bottom of the pit what to do. And some of that can be talking to your buddy, it can be your accountability, it can be going back to your big why. All of these things are going to help you. You understand you've got this neurochemical life, that actually it's really important to know that when you feel a certain way, you can change that feeling by having another thought or doing a new thing. And that might feel really weird, or you might get loads of little alarm bells going, this isn't safe. But actually, once you start to operate in a way that you get a better feeling experience and you start to enjoy that more, and I know one or two of you would tell me that that's been a good experience for you, you'll want to do more of that and you will reprogram yourself. And your energy field, okay, this whole invisible bunch of stuff around us needs to be looked after as well. I use transference healing to lift and shift my vibration. That's how I start my day. That's how I end my day. Some of the things only take me 2 or 3 minutes. I'll do them as soon as I know I need to do them. And I credit transference with having significantly changed my life and made my process of change a lot easier. It's been hard and fast at times. I've had to deal with a lot of stuff that's come up, but the transference keeps me lifted. So, next steps. Any questions before we move on? Let's just have a look. I'm going to stop the share for a moment and see if we've got any questions coming up. Let's have a little look in the chat. Okay, we've got some here. Yes, Claire. I could go into a lot about how his ego is very, very entwined in his solar plexus chakra. And because he exerts an enormous amount of power over people, whereas what I'm talking about is us reclaiming our sovereign power, he's actually, if you like, siphoning off. And I don't mean this like in sort of well, I'm just going to say siphoning off a lot of people's energy because they're in fear, and there's a psychological construct that we have where the tribe needs a bully, let's put it simply. And when we recognize that, we create a bully who's going to be there and fight for us. This is where we often give power away. And lots and lots. Trump believes so firmly in the identity that he's created for himself that he's like the emperor with this in the story. Loads of people agree with him because they need the protection of the daddy bully. They don't. What I'm teaching, and I haven't really tapped on it very much, is that once we understand how to run energy for ourselves and not take it from other people, which we do once we're running it systematically and we get really clear on who we are, what we want, and we're true to ourselves, and we behave in authentic ways, and we manage our own fear as it comes up, because it will, rather than look for somebody else to protect us, we start to really increase the amount of energy that comes to us. And it's not, life gets easier because the more electromagnetic flow we have, our thoughts, which are electro, and our feelings, which are magnetic, amplify through the heart field. And this then draws things to us. Events, coincidences, all the lovely stuff, basically. It's where the goodies are. because the magnetism of us when our feelings are calm and expanded and we're feeling more love, joy, compassion, peace and ease, naturally magnetizes more of that to us. This is the essence of all esoteric teaching. It's the essence of Tantra, of all of these things. What they've been trying to tell us, we can measure through Dr. Joe's work and other people's work. So lots and lots to take in and think about. Okay, so yes, an enormous amount. And as you know, I've only kind of surfed the surface of all of them. But what I want you to take away from this is that change is possible for everyone. Understanding that there are many elements to it and not fighting yourself because you're not succeeding, that's a waste of energy. Really trying to get support and understand why you're not succeeding is important, because everyone can change. I cannot tell you, ladies, how many changes I've made in my life. I don't want to do the whole, my story background, but I came into this world in a very, very difficult circumstance. Yeah, absolutely. Feelings are a manifestation. They're a manifestation. We see them as color, the Louise Hay way, but they also, because emotions are, if you like, waves in the matrices of the universe that are also being propelled by the spin of the planets. When we feel emotions, if we have a negative response to an emotion, the solar plexus can misinterpret them, because the solar plexus reads the emotions. When our emotional field is calm, or we can really understand our emotions and not project them until we're in control of them in a healthy way, I don't mean repressed way, when we can feel our anger and work with it, when we can feel our sadness and work with it, rather than making it about something else, we become incredibly, our energy field becomes very big. And then when we get really real and work from our heart, our solar plexus, which is simply interpreting what we feel according to what we were told we should feel. So if somebody upsets you, you're supposed to feel angry, right, or offended. Maybe not. I have a personal policy, which is, you can't offend me. It's a personal policy. I've decided on that. Right? It's not that I don't get triggered. So we can make a lot clearer, stronger decisions about, so the world doesn't push us around. It's not like I'm exempt from life and stuff doesn't happen. It's just that my responses to it are very, very different from what they were 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, and definitely feelings are part of the manifestation of all that is. So let's just come back to the final bit, because here we are. I know that time's galloping on. Have I got what I want to show you? Right, so what I'd like you to do, I'm screen sharing, but I've got to go back. Lost my spot. I'd like you to just set aside a bit of time to go back over the plan you've started, because it will guide you. You'll be amazed how your subconscious will pick up on that and start to remind you about what you've undertaken. You can map out steps and make them small so you feel really happy. One of my coaches years ago said to me, you can tick things. She said, but get a highlighter that with a colour you really love and highlight something when you've done it. So when you look, you see this lovely splurge of colour. Or say some of my clients like a wall chart where they put stickers on. You can, go to the range or something and buy some really funky stickers and just actually physically see your progress built out. Now, one of the things I want to offer you tonight, and I've just opened up some spots in my diary for the weekend, which is, I never do, but because I am so impressed that you've actually taken this time, I want to mirror that. If you want to have a call with me on one of my Midlife Game Changer gift spots, where I can go over your plan with you or talk to you, give you a bit of feedback on it, maybe suggest something else to you, I don't know. I'm available for you for a couple of hours on Saturday, a couple of hours for Sunday, and a couple of hours on Monday. I've put my address in there where you can find a spot. It is that one in blue, www.calendly.com/Debs de Vries. Or you can email me. I'm easy. You know how to find me. So we have covered an awful lot, and I would love to do some more, but I would love to be guided by you. So if there's an aspect of this, and say I will share with you over the weekend after I talked to my IT guys and decided where we're going to put the recording, that you really want to do a deep dive into, then let's do it. Maybe not next week, maybe the week after or the week after that. I just want you to absorb all this. And let's keep this going, because the world has never needed the wisdom of women more, or the feminine principle in men. I'm certainly not being gender specific, but I do know that midlife women have an awful lot to bring. And we need to break down some of our own, if you like, unseen and unfelt beliefs and patterns in order to become somebody that can be the next amazing version of yourself. I know your future self exists. I know your soul wants to express, if it's not already, it wants to express in bigger and bigger ways, because what does the universe do? Frankly, it just expands. It wants more. It's not that you're greedy to want more, it's that you are more. That's all it is. So, Diane, Barty, Amanda, Claire, I am so honoured that you joined me tonight. If you've got anything you want to pick up with me privately, just message me or use that Calendly link so we can have a chat. I'm going to love you and leave you. My tea's got cold. I didn't even sip my Ribena. My mouth's gone a bit dry. Thanks for joining me. Come and find me when you need me. And until we meet again, go well. Look after yourself, stay safe, and keep growing. Bye for now. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good night for now. Namaste.
Namaste.